We've got flags and banners, and if you mind your manners, we might even get to standards and what they represent. So just take my voice's hand and we'll both try to understand how this VexHeads Logic podcast could be flagged for content. Flagged for content.
What's up, VexHeads, and welcome to episode 60 of Flagged for Content. It's the only podcast that is going on the road this week to Minneapolis, St. Paul, as I head up to Nava 58 to both work the tech, hopefully sell some merch to cover some of the costs, and just, meet a lot of cool people, have a really good time. It's going to be a lot of fun people there. So it should be a good time. Also, be on the lookout on our social media and hopefully on YouTube. I plan to do some kind of live thing if I can stop being a dinosaur and figure out how that works. But anyway, it is also a Flags for Good podcast, which I mention every week, and every time I check their site, they have new stuff up. And I am not joking. I literally go on there before I do these intros, and I'm like, I don't want to lie to people. But every time, seriously, every time. So go check out flagsforgood.com. And when you do, you can use code FLAGGED4CONTENT for like the number. And you can get yourself a sweet discount and help the show out as well. So, plus I'll be seeing Michael at Nava 58. Speaking of those two things, just a couple housekeeping things I wanted to get to. Advertising. I did want to offer the opportunity, if you will, to advertise on the show. If you have anything that you would kind of like out there and you think the VexHeads may want to know about it. The rates are super reasonable. Just go ahead and trust me on that one, but let's talk if that's you. Do join the Patreon. I have that actually on my list. Brian and I sat down and chatted for, I think, another 20 minutes or so after this one on some more of the kind of difficulties, etc., of just the whole project in general and kind of getting things like moving because it can be tough. The Patreon links are on our link tree as well. Let's see, what else did I... Oh, please follow the show and rate it 5 stars, 5 stars where applicable. If Spotify, I know, has like a rating system. I think Apple does too, whatever their Apple Podcasts or whatever their current one is. Anyway, I think that's it for the housekeeping. One thing that Brian, the guest, wanted me to mention was that the voting window will go at least through this month. They've got to chat to a couple city council members to see exactly when they're going to wrap it up, but it will go at least through this month. So just wanted to kind of throw that on there at the beginning, because that's what most of the show is about. And with no further ado, let's go ahead and get into episode 60. Folks, we have yet another mover and shaker in the flag world this week. You know him from a Backdrop magazine article about chest hair. You know him from taking a joke way too far. And you know him from the Cleveland Flag Project. It's Brian Lachman.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
Dude, thanks for coming on, man. This might be the fastest turnaround in between me asking a guest to come on and actually having one on.
That's awesome, dude. I appreciate it. This whole project's kind of been evolving throughout evolving very quickly and just kind of rolling with the punches. So really happy to be here.
Right. I can imagine. Yeah, a lot of things are moving very quickly on your end, including this. Least of all, probably this. But yeah. So just real briefly, before we get into the project itself, or really much about flags. So you are a Cleveland native, I imagine.
Yeah. Grew up in Cleveland, live in Cleveland Heights. Grew up here. Went to college and then came back and been here ever since, raising my family, and love the city.
Gotcha. So, growing up, did you notice the Cleveland flag? Is it one of those that goes unnoticed, or I don't know? I'm just curious because a lot of bad flags go unnoticed.
I had no clue of the Cleveland flag, to be honest. Until this project started, I really did not know about the Cleveland flag. and honestly, talking to most people in the neighborhood and the city, I don't think most people do know of the Cleveland flag.
Right.
Yeah, sports reigns supreme here. It's the Cleveland Indians, now Guardians. It's the Browns. It's the Cavs. Like, we are a sports town. We're proud of our city. We're passionate. It's almost like it's Cleveland apparel to be wearing something Cleveland at all times, right? There's you probably see the Cleveland against the world shirts. There's again, Guardians hats, Brown shirts, things like that. We're proud to be Clevelanders, and yet, it's funny again when this project started a little over a year ago, and like, wait, Cleveland's got a flag, and jumped into it, and even found out, it's flying at City Hall, it's flying at some police departments. It is actually flying at the Guardian Stadium, which I one of the biggest things I've heard is, why is the French flag flying at the Guardian Stadium? And then come to find out, actually, it is on cop cars, it is on badges, but almost extremely too small than what it should be. It's kind of like very small on the badge on the shoulder, and then it's kind of on the badge of the cop car, and I mean it's maybe a couple of, like, maybe 2-3 inches of it, so it's almost embarrassingly small and like hiding in the background, I'd say. So yeah,
one of those like ones that is usually like, I mean, here in Chattanooga we have it's similar to yours, if not, I think it's even worse, because like the color contrast is terrible. It's like dark green, then dark blue, then dark green, like vertical stripes, and then just the city seal in the middle. Yours at least has some contrast with the city seal being on the white in the middle and it being a vertical triband. But and it sounds like Cleveland is similar in that it's only displayed where it like has to be legally by law type things, or kind of some ordinance or something like that.
Yeah, and I think that's talking with Ted K throughout the whole project, and it was kind of saying, a city flag is more like the people's flag, but I think in this sense and in our city, it seems a little bit more of the government's flag. I think that just kind of naturally happens when you have a seal on it. It just seems very government, like City Hall, than it is something that you're going to fly from your house.
Yes, yeah, very much so. All right. Well, we have got a lot of Cleveland flag talk to get into, so let's save some of it. We will go ahead and get into what's on the flagpole today. That was a pretty good preview of it, but we have our usual over and underrated flags. We have an inspirational flag that not only got Brian into flags in general, but into this very project, as discussed. That is the Cleveland Flag Project, which we will discuss for the bulk of this. We'll go over kind of how it started, how the data was collected, where it's going, how you can potentially contribute to it, all that good stuff. And then near the end, we will get into some listener questions with Brian. So, but before we get into any of that, Brian, I do like to ask my guests, what is that flag that got you into flags?
Yeah, the inspiring flag would be the Chicago flag.
Okay. I could see it.
It is, I think, Chicago has set the bar for city flags.
No argument.
Yeah, it's a simple flag. It's the 2 blue stripes and the 4 red stars. Again, design wise, it's extremely simple. I really do love that light blue with the red stripes. It's almost, you think patriotic is red, white, and blue, but with that light blue, it takes on its whole different element, I think, which is really cool. But really what fascinates me with flag design, everything is it's more how that flag and that symbol becomes united with this passion and this feeling with a community. And I think that's what's so exciting about flags for me, and what got me inspired to do this project is the idea, again, as we just talked about, is Clevelanders are passionate about their city. There's a unifying symbol for civic pride. That is a city flag. And yet for a city that's so passionate about itself, I don't think that flag is nearly as embraced or prominent in our city as it could be. And then going to Chicago, seeing the flag everywhere, realizing that people have tattoos of it. I've run into people in Cleveland and Chicago with the Chicago tattoo. It's on beer cans. It's not, it's on the court of the Chicago Bulls. And all of a sudden you just realize that it's embedded in the culture of Chicago. And that's what's really cool about, I think, flags and what they can ultimately become for a community.
Yeah. It's also like, it's one thing we talk about in design and in redesigns like this is remixability for sports. And like you were talking about, Cleveland is such a sports town. Chicago as well, of course. And like I just Googled Chicago flag sports, and there's so many images that come up. One, I mean, like the main ones that come up are pretty much the flag, but the blue stripes are the skyline, one going up, one going down. And then there's more than 4 sports teams in Chicago, but this person chose the Cubs, one other one chose the White Sox. So, and just put those all in red logos as the 4 stars. Like there's so much you can do with it. Like I think Chicago even has a soccer, like I don't know, football team for our European listeners, don't they? And don't they have, I could be wrong, but I feel like Chicago has a soccer team that even has that as part of their logo. If not, they're missing out because they should. And this seems like something I would have done my research better on, but
yeah. The official Chicago Fire.
Chicago Fire.
I believe it is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Chicago Fire FC, their like logo, at least the one I'm looking at, definitely throws back to the flag. It's got a stylized C in the middle with a 6-pointed star and that kind of light blue around it. But yeah, I mean, like good flags for a city tend to, let's see, what was the other one that I can't remember right now which other one we were talking about on a separate episode, but I mean, yeah, they raise civic pride and they raise awareness of that city's flag in general. So it sounds like, and again, we'll get to it later, but that's something that you're hoping to do for Cleveland, what Chicago kind of already has, and using that as a bit of inspiration. Yeah, I definitely, was Chicago kind of, I know we're getting branching a little bit, but were there any other like city flags that kind of inspired your, I don't know, not necessarily the project, but just like your love for city flags at all? Again, we didn't discuss this beforehand, so
no, you're good. Yeah. Going into it, so again, my ultimate inspiration was the Chicago flag. Getting more into it, I mean, there was a ton more out there. Another gentleman, Josh, who's one of our co-organizers, he goes into Chicago and DC a lot. The DC flag, I think, again, in that element of just embedded in the culture, rebrandable within the city, the DC flag. And then, I mean, I really like the Tulsa flag. I know I threw that out there a little bit ago too. We discussed maybe talking about that one. Yeah. I mean, those were the main elements. I mean, we dove into tons of different flag design parts of it, but it's just interesting diving into flag design and all the different shapes, and it's the simplicity that's really tough to wrap your head around too when you're trying to start from scratch, right?
For sure. And it's interesting too. I kind of like maybe in the back of my mind almost wanted you to say the DC flag because I mean, for one, those are similar in a way, right? They both have 2 stripes, they both have stars. Granted, the stars are different, 5-pointed versus 6-pointed, and 3 of them versus 4 of them. Stripes are different colors, etc. But there's similarities. And those are the 2 that are ranked number 1 and number 2 on the 2004 American City Flag Survey by NAVA. So, like, you're drawing from, the best of the best here. Yeah. As agreed upon by people that know what they're talking about, in other words. This survey in 2004 was even too early for Tulsa, but it's ranked very highly in one of the new city flag surveys. And I think if I'm right, it also has a 6-pointed star, or is it? I think it's also 6. It might be 5. But
oh man, now I'm blanking on that. It's a white star in the red. It's a 6-pointed star.
Okay, it is also 6. Yeah. Interesting.
Which slightly different, I'd say, because typically you have like the point straight up and straight down, and it's turned a little bit, which makes it a little bit more unique.
It is shifted, yeah. But anyway, yeah, Chicago, definitely a good starting point. It's interesting too, because we don't have that many guests that their starting point is a city flag. When we do have a guest that fits that bill, it is usually someone like yourself who is trying to better a city's flag. And I love talking to people like that. I mean, I love all my guests, but like it's fascinating to kind of see the very clear through line on stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's go ahead, and I always let the guest pick if you want to start with your underrated or your overrated on this this next part.
Yeah, let's start with underrated, just because we're rolling with it. I want to say the Ohio flag is my underrated flag, which you got right behind you.
Yep.
Some may think that's goofy that it is underrated, I guess, because it is kind of prominent and known. But quite honestly, I think, talking with Ted K from NAVA as well, and I think he was listing off where Ohio fell into the list of state flags, and I think it was somewhere around like 12th or something like that. But me and my buddies all thought it could have been a lot higher. I just think Ohio, it's so unique that there is no other state that is going to have that burgee swallowtail design. It is extremely unique in that fashion, which we also took a lot of consideration in with our project as well, looking at that swallowtail design. But I just really like it. It's one of those things that growing up, again, you mentioned, were you aware of the Cleveland flag? Definitely aware of the Ohio flag. The Ohio flag is flown everywhere. You see it in a lot more spaces. So I think I have a little bit more of that, more ties to the Ohio flag than anything else, and how unique that is. And I would also say it's kind of interesting doing this project when we'd start asking people on the streets, like, hey, do you know what the Cleveland flag looks like? They're like, yeah. It's that red, white, and blue flag with the 2 points on it. And I'm like, that's the Ohio flag. So
they just assume it's that one they see everywhere.
Yeah. And they haven't. That is flown.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Ohio's flag. It's definitely it's interesting to get that outlook, because I think I was telling you off air. I'm pretty sure we've gotten that it was overrated. It's interesting to hear a slightly different take. Well, a completely different take on it, rather, that it's underrated, and from somebody in Ohio proper.
Yes.
I didn't grow well. My dad is from the Cleveland area, so I did grow up going there about twice a year. Yeah, about twice a year. And I would see a lot of the Ohio flag. Granted, I'm also in a state with another good flag, Tennessee, so see a lot of that state flag. So I guess like going from one state with a good flag to another state with what I consider a good flag, Ohio, you don't really notice, like, you're just like, yeah, I mean, of course you have the state flag out. It looks good. It looks good next to the US flag, both like red, white, and blue in Tennessee and Ohio's case. They both look good next to it. So it doesn't really like, it's not as jarring or shocking or whatever as if you go to a state with a bad flag and you're like, there's no way that's it or something.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in someone growing up in Ohio and still thinking the Ohio flag is underrated, because is there not a lot of so in Tennessee, that tri-star that's in the middle of our flag is freaking everywhere. Is the Ohio flag not similarly and by that I mean like not in flag form, but like on apparel and a bunch of other stuff?
Yeah, you'll see it more branded into elements. I know there's I think even for it's kind of interesting too. I believe it's a Cleveland thing, but it's promoting like local beer in Cleveland.
Right.
And they actually use the Ohio flag as kind of like the branding part of that, which I thought was kind of funny. It's like, cool, for the local Cleveland, we actually chose the state of Ohio instead of the Cleveland flag again.
But
yeah, no, I think it's a great flag. I just think it could be ranked higher than what it was initially ranked by NAVA. So I think it definitely has shown itself to the community as a good flag, but I think it could be ranked higher.
No, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask. So not asked, but answered.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I'm looking at the survey scores now, And these include Canadian provinces, so I think without those, you're right.
Okay.
And it is 12 or 13. I don't know.
Okay.
Quebec is in there, but so I would rate it like of the ones that I would rate it higher than. I would rate it higher than Maryland. I would rate it higher than Alaska. I would rate it higher than Arizona. I don't know why Marshall Islands is on there. Is that owned by the U.S.? Is it? I don't know if I'd rate it higher than Marshall Islands, but I'd rate it at least. Oh, Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'd rate it higher than at least like 4 of those out of the U.S. ones. So that would bump it up to at least top 10. Like
Yeah, we got to be
7
in
or
top
8
10.
or something.
We got to be in the top 10.
So yeah, definitely underrated, even though it is highly rated. And that's like a tack that not a lot of people come onto the show with, but I very much appreciate that.
Yeah.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I proved the point.
Yeah. No, agreed. All right, let's go on to our overrated flag.
Overrated. Yeah. So this was tough for me. Nobody wants to pick on a flag, right?
Right.
So that it was weird. It was goofy. But looking into things and scrolling through all the designs that we've been looking at, I fell on Australia.
Mm-hmm.
For the sake that I think it's weird that there's a flag on a flag.
You're not alone.
Yeah, I don't like the feel of it. I don't like the look of it. Yeah, I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way. I just don't like that design. I think it's just goofy having, here's a small flag on a bigger flag with a couple of different things to it. And I don't know. Australia is its own thing. I feel like they could do better.
Yeah, you're not going to get any argument here. We do have one viewer that is very into that kind of flag, and that's their opinion and everything. I agree with you. Have you seen any of the other New Zealand's flag, or there's like a whole plethora of ones that have that kind of British Union Jack of the?
Yeah, I know. And again, it's just like,
kind of pick Australia because it's the most common or the most well-known one.
It's just Britain just staking its claim on everything still, huh?
Yeah, it is to me. It is very bizarre that so many of them have just continued to use that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some that I don't know. There's some that have closer ties with the UK. And in that case, maybe it makes more sense. But Australia, New Zealand, I don't know. I mean, New Zealand had a flag referendum in, what was it, like 2015 or something like that. And it basically, I don't know if failed is the right word, but okay, so like you're doing with Cleveland Flag Project, the fourth option is the original flag, is just to stay with.
Yeah.
And so I think that's more or less what they did. Was, I don't know if it was 4 options, how many they had, but one of them was just to retain. And that's what ended up winning with theirs. They may try it again in a few years, but yeah, Australia's in a similar boat. I've had Jeremy Matthews on from the Flags for Australia account. I don't know if you follow them on Instagram, but you should. If you don't,
I will take a look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got an infinitely better flag for Australia, which is based on their. Do you watch like soccer or rugby or any of that?
A little bit. I'm not as much as a fanatic as my other friends, but yeah.
Gotcha. But if you've seen Australia play either of those, you'll know that like their kits are like yellow and like a kind of turquoisey, like a bluish green. I guess more on the green side than blue, but and those are like considered their national colors. I don't know if they're officially their national colors, or if it's de facto or de jure, kind of thing. But he's created a flag that incorporates those colors and a few other elements that, in my opinion, is infinitely better than what they currently have, which, again, I agree with your point wholeheartedly. Any flag that just has a different flag on it, not really into it.
Yeah, it's kind of this idea
really
of like having your own identity.
It's like, I mean, the early versions of the US flag had the UK flag like where the stars are now. Like the stripes were the same, but it was the UK flag up there, and that's like, all right. But I'm glad we replaced that and kept evolving that with more states, more stars, etc.
Yeah, Yeah, it's funny. I was actually on the United States flag. I'm reading my 5-year-old daughter's little kid's almanac book the other day, and I actually had to take a picture of this quote just because I was like, through all the bumps along the way with this project and everything, I was like, okay, this gives me a little motivation. It was his thing that said the current 50-star U.S. flag was designed by a 17-year-old Ohio high school student as a history project in 1958, and he got a B minus. I'm like, okay. For the beloved U.S. flag, and they got a B minus. Like, over time, things just,
exactly.
It's all about that emotion and passion that links up with it after some time. So,
oh yeah, for sure. There's always, and I mean, like I said, I am not the biggest fan of the Alaska flag. Like I said, I would rate Ohio over it, but the Alaska flag did get 5th on that survey, 4th if you take out Quebec, so just the U.S. And it was designed by Benny Benson, an Alaskan, I think, middle schooler, who was like, he might have been like 12, or I think he was in middle school. So yeah, around about like 12 or something. And he designed what is still the Alaska state flag. And this was like similar, like 50s or something like that, 40s or 50s. I guess it wouldn't have been the 40s because it won the state for half of that. But,
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, there's always fun little cases like that. There's a lot of UK, like especially Scottish flags right now that are being designed by middle schoolers. It's a very cool time to be in this space.
Yeah, and I think what's cool about it, and probably what makes sense about middle schoolers winning these contests or whatever they are, is the fact that a flag needs to be simple, right? And I think as an adult, you might overthink it and make too elaborate of a flag. And so having that great sweet middle spot of a middle schooler, and it's boom, simple, impactful, leave it up to the kids to make that right design. Then, probably a graphic designer or an adult trying to do too much to overcomplicate a flag. And
for sure. Yeah, I've been on a couple flag committees, and there's definitely a lot of cases of people trying to do too much. I'm not a designer, but when I try, I'm definitely guilty of that. I'm like, let's try and pack all of this into this, and it invariably doesn't work for multiple reasons. But anyway, yeah, all right. So all that aside, let's go ahead and take a break before getting into the bulk of this, which we have hinted at very heavily. Not hinted at, we have straight up said we are going to get into this Cleveland Flag Project, which is what folks came here to listen to. So after the break, we are going to dig straight into that. So everyone stay tuned, and we will be right back. And we are back, more with Brian Lachman from the Cleveland Flag Project. And as listeners know, I always like to start with the start. So, Brian, your words, this is the origin story. How did the Cleveland Flag Project begin?
Yeah, so it all started May 2023. I was in Chicago for the National Restaurant Association show, or as I call it, the other NRA show. And so I'm in food sales. I work for a food distributor. So I went out there for work. A buddy of mine is a food photographer. He made an excuse to get out there for work. And then another buddy of mine had to actually work that NRA show. So we all went out there with our wives, made a big weekend of it, had a blast, got to roll through the convention center, but also roll through Chicago itself. My friend Andrew, who's the food photographer, he had actually lived in Chicago for about 6 years with his wife, Jamie. And we were actually sitting, waiting for the train after going to the convention, and just the public transit, the flyers, everything like that, like the flag was incorporated into there. Right. And Andrew just went on a rant, the Chicago flag, it's everywhere, it's culture here, it's blah blah blah, and just Cleveland doesn't have this, it's crazy. And after his little rant, I just turned to him and I said, do something about it, man. And it kind of, we were like, wait a second, let's do something about this. And we just, the whole weekend was chatting about the Chicago flag. How could we do this? How could Cleveland embrace a flag? Or we did quickly. I said, does Cleveland have a flag? We looked it up. We went, oh, okay. Well, can we make a new design of a flag, and how would we do that? And started snowballing and chatting the whole weekend, drinks and chatting and figuring it out.
Yep.
And came back from Chicago, and I couldn't let it go. So kind of got us all back together. And I said, I think we should do this. I think this is something that's worthwhile. I think it's something that could be really cool for the city. And it's that thing I've been looking to do, right? I got my job and everything, but this is a great passion project I was really excited about. And as we kind of kept thinking about the different elements of this project and how cool this could really be for the city, I was like, let's do it. So, we started sitting down every other week, sitting at the bar and making up designs ourselves. And we're thinking, all right, great. It's going to be the three of us. We're going to make a design. We're going to get it out there. I've got connections with businesses in Cleveland. We're just going to, we're going to pop this out of nowhere and just roll with it. Right.
Right.
And thank goodness we didn't do that. Really, after we got to about 60 designs ourselves, we sat there and we looked around and said, this flag can't come from three white guys in the suburbs. We need to make sure if this is going to be anything, this needs to be embraced, and the city and the community needs to be way more involved with this than just us trying to throw this out there. So we started trying to talk to anybody and everybody about it, right? We started talking to the public about the Cleveland flag. Do you know the Cleveland flag? We started linking up with retail shops, apparel companies, organizations, nonprofits. We got to sit down with the mayor's office, with his people. We started bumping around, and actually through these, trying to connect with people, touch base with this local apparel company, had a great conversation with them. I think not even 2 days later, they called me and go, hey, this is crazy. Somebody just reached out about this. Do you know this guy, Josh? And I said, I have no clue who Josh is. Well, this guy, Josh Harkleroad, who's now, the co-organizer with me, was trying to do the exact same thing. So very quickly said, all right, cool. Give me his number. Let's chat. He jumped in on the project with us, and just kind of evolved into what the current project has become. And that was making sure that this flag comes from the community and not just from us. From the get-go, we've looked at ourselves as organizers and almost just kind of managers of the project, and trying to get the right people involved in order for this to be effective, and in order to get engagement and insight and feedback from the community. So where the project really started rolling into the new year, we put out a survey. So we made a bunch of flyers. I think at that point too, we kind of got into the news a little bit, got into some magazines. Actually, what's very interesting, one of the sports radio guys mentioned the Cleveland flag on Twitter one day during one of the Browns games, and I reached out to him, and he started chatting about it on the radio, and then again sparked some more interest. So so we got these flyers out, basically saying, hey, what would you want on the flag? So it was a survey essentially asking, what colors would you want on a flag? What symbols? What do you love about your city? Do you know of the current Cleveland flag? Do you think we should get a new flag? And we ended up getting about 650 surveys from people in the community, and pulled all that information, where I believe that is or was during the submission process available on our submission page as, research for the colors that people might be interested in. And again, elements of the city that people love, the Cuyahoga River, Lake Erie, the greenery, the food scene, everything like that. So we took that survey information. Again, we sat down with mayor's office. Throughout the whole process, we're trying to figure out, okay, great, this is a passion project. We're not here to make any money, but we need some money to get this rolling. So how do we fund this? Started talking to organizations potentially to find grant money, sponsors, crowdfunding, which we kind of did all of the above. And then once we kind of put together this project, also again, huge shout out to Ted K with NAVA. Again, had some great conversations with Ted to steer us in the right direction and make sure, one, what we had going on was an appropriate process. And then he
Yeah.
definitely gave us much more insight on the proper way to go about it too.
Yeah. I was gonna ask, did you reach out to him, or did he kind of like find out about you guys and reach out to you?
So Josh ended up reaching out to him before he linked up with us, and then when
Okay.
we combined forces, ended up doing a call with all of us involved. But he was great. Again, I think Ted's done over
Yeah.
100 cities now, a state
Yeah.
and a country. So the guy knows what he's doing. We also reached out to the guys in Milwaukee, Steve.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we were just, it was a lot of research and development trying to figure out, like, if we're going to do this, how do we do it right? You kind of hopefully only get one chance at doing this and doing it correctly. So, yeah, we ended up opening up a open submission process for anybody in Greater Cleveland. Again, realizing, like, if this is going to be effective, we need to get everybody to get involved with it. So we had a submission process that lasted, I think, about 3 months. Throughout that 3-month period, we were tabling events, we were canvassing, we were putting flyers around the city, again, hitting news, radio. We got some awesome like social media pushes from some social media influencers in Cleveland, as well as this guy, Toby Raps. He's a Cleveland rapper. He put together this like 45-second jingle, which he killed it.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, and a
local, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, him, as well as linking up with one of our influencers, we got over 70,000 views off of that alone, which was awesome. And again, you'll have to look it up on our Instagram page, but Toby Raps, he kills it. It's a great video. And yes, we did that for a few months. We hit the Pride events. We hit neighborhood festivals. We hit tattoo conventions. We hit music festivals and things like that. Again, great. It was great going to the tattoo convention and talking to these guys and saying, one, do you know the Cleveland flag? They're like, no. I was like, you ever had anybody get a tattoo of it? They're like, no.
Yeah, that's great research, because I mean, going back to Chicago, like you said, yeah, people get it tattooed and all this other stuff. Yeah.
So we're hitting it. We're seeing in real time the submissions come in. We hit 100, we hit 200, and I'm thinking, okay, great. I just want to get as many as possible. And it wrapped up. We got just over 570 submissions from Clevelanders.
Whew.
It was awesome. It was really cool. There was, variety from little kids with crayon and paper to, professional graphic designers mocking up apparel, mocking up the new Cavs jersey for like a Flag Day jersey. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's that tie into sports that we were talking about, because that's so important for city flags. Yep. Yeah,
I'd say honestly, out of 570 some designs, we had less than 5 goofy submissions, which
really?
I was waiting for much more inappropriate stuff to come through, and it really was not that bad.
Yeah, because like at that time, are you kind of simultaneously, I guess, like Minnesota's flag commission, I guess, was probably nearly wrapped up by then, but I imagine, had you seen how any of that went? I mean, granted, that's a state one, not a city one, but had you been following any of that?
I want to say it was wrapping up as we were really gaining momentum. So It was just like, oh man, this is also going on over here. This is interesting. Let's take a look at it.
Right.
But I did not speak with anybody directly over there. Again, more with Milwaukee on that part of it.
Right. And Ted K, I mean, was involved with a little bit with the or a bit with the Minnesota one, and you talked to him as well. So
yeah,
there's definitely a link. Because I mean, I know the Minnesota one got a bunch of goofy submissions, is why I asked. They got like one with, it was just like a picture of somebody's like golden retriever out on the lawn.
That's okay. So that's interesting, because, and I never dug too deep into it, because somebody, I thought, accidentally submitted a picture, but it was him giving his golden retriever a bath. And
okay.
Yeah, so it's very weird. Maybe that's the same dude.
It might have been inspired by that.
Oh man, that's interesting. I didn't even know about that. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it could have been inspired by that in any case. I was going to ask, how do you make sure that the designs are submitted by locals? Is there some kind of like, what kind of filters do you have for that?
Really, I mean, almost an honor system part of it. So through this, in the submission process, there's a lot of questions. Where do you live in the city? How did you hear about the project? What was the symbolism involved with it? So we try to pull as much as possible. And quite honestly, look, until we got it down to the narrowed selections, it didn't matter as long as the final selections we pulled really were Clevelanders, right? So I had some
Right.
people reach out that they're like, hey, look, I live in Pittsburgh now, but I grew up in Cleveland. I love the city. It's like, I'm not going to tell a Clevelander that is a passionate Clevelander not to submit something. Look, this is all about civic pride and engagement, and again, like uplifting your city or the city that you love. So why restrict somebody from submitting something like that? To the same point too, going in front of city council and city council saying, why should people outside of Cleveland be able to vote, like greater Cleveland people, instead of like city limits? Or and the same thing with submissions. It's kind of this idea of like, look, if we're civic pride extends past the city limits, right? Greater Cleveland wouldn't be part of the suburbs of Cleveland wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the city. And again, talking about a sports town and talking about how far that pride for the Cleveland Browns or the Guardians and things like that extend past even greater Cleveland. It's all about civic pride, and it's all about having that symbol. So we didn't really, it was more about inclusivity than excluding people. So we kind of made it available for anybody really to submit that had a relationship to greater Cleveland. I'm trying to think the other parts of it. So again, this project evolved so much throughout it. And I think what was really cool about working on this project with the people that we have, the organizers and the volunteers, is that we weren't set in our ways at any point. We started this project thinking it was going to be three guys designing a flag, to talking to city council, talking to the mayor's office, to talking to Ted, and completely like changing things around and constantly evolving. So much like I think a lot of these projects do, we started getting into the mainstream a little bit, and out came the great granddaughter of the original flag designer. And she was very opposed to this project, which again, we kind of said, all right, great. So let's think about this. We're not trying to, again, I think even Ted's even said it's not good to say good flag, bad flag. It's more like effective flag or not effective flag. So we quickly kind of said, all right, if we're going to eventually make this a vote at the end, we need to keep the current flag in there, right? Because there are people out there that have passion for that flag, and we definitely don't want to make anybody mad about that or offend anybody with that, because that's the whole goal, is to have more people that have that passion for the flag. And again, also, I think it becomes more effective when you're presenting things to city council to say, hey, with these selections and the current flag, the people agreed on this. And I think it's very easy for city council to say, well, you didn't include that flag, so how do we really know what the people want? So So we quickly evolved, included that. And again, throughout the whole process too, told the story of the original Cleveland flag, which it's a great story. It's a 130-year-old flag. It was created by this young woman, Susan Hepburn, who won a competition that was started in 1895 with our local newspaper, The Plain Dealer. And what's even cooler than that, they ended up having 24 submissions. One was a woman. It was Susan, and she won. And it's this crazy story. I think the gentleman that wrote an article about her, they ended up meeting, and they got married and had a family and all this stuff. It's a great story. It's a cool story. And it's
results
amazing,
not typical.
and it's amazing Clevelander. It's just, looking at it now and saying, living in Cleveland and not having this flag so
Sure.
prominent in this city, we decided to go the route that we did. So let's see, next step to that is the committee, right?
Well, I was going to say,
go ahead.
If we could linger on that point for a minute, I think in addition to all the points that you just raised about why to include it in the final four, which is what you ended up going with 4, not only everything that you just listed, but if the final one, you've still done the service of raising the profile of that one, because you've gotten it more into the conscience, like the citywide conscience anyway, of, okay, well, I didn't even know that we had that flag. I'm not so sure about these 3 updated ones, but you know what, I really don't mind that one or whatever. I like that one the best. You've still kind of raised the profile of a Cleveland flag, whichever one it ends up being. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a win-win by including it.
Yeah, I think again, ultimately, and I'll admit it on this podcast, I didn't come into this being a flag enthusiast, right? I came in being a Clevelander, a passionate Clevelander,
Yeah, sure.
realizing the opportunity that we had here. And yeah, exactly to your point. And I had a city council member say the exact same thing. She said, "Well, what if the current flag wins, or what if city council decides to say no to whatever you say?" I said, "I'm going to promote whatever flag the community votes on through our process.
Yeah.
So if that's the current flag, let's get it in the city. Let's get it more in around there. Let's get it flown. Let's get it into the apparel. Let's make sure we have a more prominent flag.
Yeah.
And if it's the new one, then we'll do the exact same thing."
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Sorry, did not mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good. There's
all
a
right,
lot.
so where are we
there's a lot
going
to the
now?
story. Yeah. So cool. So we get through the submission process. It's time to start narrowing down the selection. So we had to build a committee. Again, we didn't want it coming from us. We wanted it to come from Cleveland and Clevelanders. So we worked very hard to make sure that we had a committee that we felt was representative of the people of Cleveland. So throughout this whole process, talking to organizations, nonprofits, government workers, random Clevelanders, things like that, we wanted to find a group of people that could help us narrow that selection. So we ended up with 10 committee members, ranging from artists, creatives, fashion designers, business owners, sports fanatics, that are all living within the city limits or own a business within the city limits. A few that have nonprofits of their own or foundations trying to better the city. So we pulled together this group of 10 and got them educated. So Ted K came on and put together a great presentation for our committee to get them properly informed and educated on flag design. And then once we kind of got those final submissions of 570, we right off the rip, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
we put together some surveys and exercises to start narrowing those down. I think first and foremost, there's no way we can have the city of Cleveland vote on 570 flags. That's unrealistic. And no way did we want to have a Bodie McBoatface winning the flag design, right? We didn't want to have that joke flag winning out for some goofy reason. So yeah, we took on a lot of exercises that Ted recommended, as well as our advisory panel, which another element of all of this too, we were fiscally sponsored and advised through AIGA Cleveland, which was a huge part of it. So AIGA is kind of it is a national group, but AIGA Cleveland specific is kind of your nonprofit for graphic design.
Okay.
So again, with this process, making sure that in no way we seem to be spec work or anything like that, and being very respectful of the artists, we made sure our terms and conditions were properly put together. The language was appropriate. And that, again, at the end of the day, we figured out proper compensation and recognition throughout the whole process. So, a big part of that was in the terms and condition, making sure that every artist knew that when you submitted this flag, that we took no ownership of it ourselves.
Okay.
Which was a big part of that. So, through a bunch of different surveys and exercises, we had a couple different committee meetings and a lot of stuff online. We got down to the top 3, which took a lot of work, and was pretty proud of.
Yeah, that was I mean, like we will get to some of the questions. That was one of the questions. I guess I'll just cut to the chase.
Yeah,
how did you end up with those 4 finalists, and what was the thought process? Because I mean, you just ran through most of it, but 572 you said to 3.
Yeah.
How long, I guess, was that part of the process, whittling it down?
I think that span was about 3 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So again, Ted really set the stage on what you're looking for with flags: the good flag, the bad flag, design, simplicity, symbolism, brandability, things like that. So just to get the ball rolling, we did a very simple survey. So we put it out there. We had all 570 some submissions, and it was a yes or no question. And the way we phrased it is, if you think it's a good flag, yes. If you think it's a good flag, if we did something to it, tweaked it, altered something, changed the color, hit yes. And then if you don't think it's good flag, hit no. So
Okay, yeah. So not
which,
just a straight up yes or no. There's
well, yeah. So it was a straight yes or no, but again, this idea of yes or yes if, and click yes if it's a yes if.
Okay,
So
yeah, right. Gotcha.
yeah, so like yes if we change this to blue instead of green, or what have you, or change the star to this or that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so through that we
So,
I believe if it was 50% of the committee said yes on it, with the advisory panel as well, we moved it along to the next stage. That dropped it down to 78 designs. And then we met in person. We did a lot of different exercises recommended by Ted, and some stuff recommended by the graphic designers. By the end of that meeting, I think we had it down to a solid 14 designs, where we then took feedback from the committee on things that we could possibly tweak or alter onto those designs. Went back, our designers, and did the little tweaks and alterations. We got back up to about 44 designs off of those tweaks, and then did a lot more surveys, hitting on, again, like rating 1 to 10 design, 1 to 10 symbolism, 1 to 10 brandability on every one of those designs, asking every committee member to make notes on those as well.
Yeah.
Which supplied us with that last meeting, to really sit down. I think it took us about 4.5 hours of sitting there deliberating, poking at things, playing.
Right.
I like playing good flag, bad flag. Right, you sit there and go, okay, somebody defend it. Somebody try and poke holes in it. Does it look like this? Does it look like that? There's a lot. It's like, that looks like a dinosaur face. Okay, well, that one looks like. So it took a lot of time figuring that out, and getting it down to those final 3. But again, I think the 3 elements we really considered, I guess, to really answer that question, it was design, symbolism, and brandability. Thinking about how the Chicagos, the DCs, the Ohio flags, is it a good design? Is it simple and symbolic in a way that it makes sense? And can we see that being incorporated with a sports team or a logo, or on a hat?
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I will go ahead and mention, just so I don't forget it, that question was asked by Flags in Focus. That is Tareth Peacock, who is a frequent guest on the show. Yeah, and a good question. Yeah, I can imagine how tough that was to whittle it down to that many. But yeah, like you said, brandability, as we've hit on for probably the 5th time now, is a crucial element of that, for, again, all the reasons that we've mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that must have been really difficult to get it down to 3. We will get to some more of the questions in part 3, but before we even get to part 3, why don't you walk us through the rest of part 2 here with kind of the future of the project and what folks can do to potentially get involved?
Good call. Yeah, so right now, going up until the end of September, we are asking people to vote on their flag design. So you can go to cleflag.org, or our social media, which is CLE Flag. It'll link you to the designs. You can vote on it. Again, it kind of has a reference of your relationship to Cleveland or anything like that. And then you rate each flag from a 1 to 10. And then it's a simple question of yes or no, should we change the flag? But again, in order for this to be an effective project, in order for this to be effective enough to bring to city council, we need to make sure we have the votes for it. So it's spreading the word, it's getting people to vote, it's getting people to, I'd love for people to share what they voted for on social media, and express why they liked that flag or didn't like that flag. So that's what's going on now. Once we wrap everything up, which I believe will be end of September, we really didn't have a deadline on the voting because we wanted to make sure we had the proper amount of votes. We got the engagement with all parts of Cleveland and greater Cleveland.
Yep.
And once we do that, that's when we present everything to city council. So right now, I think when I looked at it a little earlier today, we're coming up to about 7,000 votes.
Ooh.
Which is pretty cool. But
you probably don't even need the Flags for Content bump, but
man, take it. No, man, and that's the thing. Look, we need the votes. We need to make sure that we get it heard. So I'm going to keep going till the end of September. Make sure everyone has an opportunity to say what they want to say about it. And then we present it to city council, and we're going to just be completely transparent like we have been the whole time with council, and just present everything that we've got, where we the results, the yes or no questions, the rates, and everything like that. And hopefully we can work further with city council to make this project real, and either embrace the current flag, or because at the end of the day, city council needs to change an ordinance which they need to vote on. So that's where that's where the timeline gets a little iffy. How long is that going to work with city council? How quickly will they embrace something like that?
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But it's been, it's great. I've already kind of chatted with, Flags for Good in terms of manufacturing and getting some flags out there. I've been talking with some local Cleveland apparel companies who have been like all about this project and wanting to getting it out there. But again, at the end of the day, the whole goal is that this is something that becomes legitimate and embraced by the city. But really, this project doesn't end there. So for me, and from the get-go, I've kind of said, I'm not here to replace the 10 flags you can find outside the city. That's not where I want to go. I want this to be a prominent flag. I want to embrace through the community, and that's through working on distribution of flags and having these Cleveland-owned businesses ready to go with apparel, getting things rolling so we can make this more momentous and keep the momentum going to where this gets really embraced by the community. Again, I came into this as a passionate Clevelander, seeing where that impact could be. So that's where the project ends. It's really making sure that, look, maybe not the 5 government buildings, but let's get 200, 300 flags. I want this on restaurants. I want them on houses. I want them on shirts and hats, and make that happen. So again, like with this whole project, we're not making any money off of this. We want to make sure that it's almost a reinvestment into the city. We're uplifting everybody. So that means getting local companies involved that support the local economy, talking with Flags for Good, which again, awesome mission that you guys already have. And what I've talked to them about is that if getting the flags through their group to make sure that it is a Cleveland nonprofit that the proceeds will go to.
Yeah. And they are very good about that. And I mean, put simply, it sounds like you're doing it the ideal way. You're doing a flag by the city for the city. Keeping it local, keeping like local manufacturers, the ones that are doing like, apparel companies, like you said, like, yes. Very cool. Emphasizing the non-profit, because like you will get a lot of, from following the Minnesota ones, the Utah ones, again, those are state ones, but like, that's the biggest like hiccup that people run into is like, oh, you're just trying to make a buck, and you can like, no, well, I'm not making $1 off of this. We helped facilitate something, and you still will hear this just as a preview. You probably know that anyway.
Oh, absolutely. People read headlines, not articles.
Exactly. Yeah. But you can point to like, no, look, I mean, every dollar that can go back into the local economy is going back into the local economy. At least, again, people read the headlines, but you can at least have something to point to when it, push comes to shove or whatever. So yeah, it sounds like, I mean, you're doing it the exact right way. No notes on that.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else on that, or should we break for another commercial and get into part 3 here?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's go ahead and break once more. When we get back into part 3, we will cover this a little bit more, go into some listener questions, and a little bit of a grab bag here at the end. Anyway, stay with us, and we will see y'all in just a minute. Okay, and we are back for part 3, and Brian and I have covered, well, mostly Brian has covered the Cleveland Flag Project, the project itself. Now let's get into the final flags, with emphasis on the new ones. Brian, I guess I would suggest going in order from 1 through 3. Do you want to go ahead and talk us through flag number 1, this red, white, and blue looking one here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got flag number 1 here.
Right.
Is going to be the red, white, and blue. kind of walking through it a little bit. So the red itself is going to be kind of a nod to the Ohio flag. So we have this red in a swallowtail design, which was a big, something we were really hoping for, is to have some type of recognition or something with the swallowtail. Also, that the space to the right in blue is almost kind of like that bird's eye view of the Lake Erie. So you've kind of got the lake, the water, and then you have yeah. So then you also then have the C with the star in it. So you have a C for Cleveland, but it's also in blue, which again is going to kind of emphasize the Crooked River as the Cuyahoga. And then the 6-pronged star you're going to see in all of the other flags. Our first, and again, kind of hoping to nod to the original flag, is that at the top of the original flag, there are 2 images that are actually 6 total images. And those are to relate to our industry and being a port to Cleveland, or Port of Cleveland. So those 6-pronged stars is a nod to the original design and the original 6 images on that flag. And then what I also think is really cool about this thing, there isn't another line, but it is actually almost made up with that star and the C right up against the blue. And you have kind of this red line running across it, which again, you can nod to the Rust Belt. Also, if we want to be Clevelanders, where we are the first to defend ourselves and first to make fun of ourselves, you can also maybe say that it is the Burning River, which, if you're familiar, our river's gone up in flames a few times.
Yep.
So that's flag number 1. Again, I think other elements, a lot of feedback we had from people too was, the current Cleveland flag is red, white, and blue. It does when you got the American flag, you got the Ohio flag, and the current Cleveland flag, it's all kind of in unison as red, white, and blue. It really works with each other really well.
Right.
So that kind of hit on that. Flag number 2, we have kind of the Crooked River flag, if you will. So first and foremost, right in the middle, we have the squiggled blue, which is going to be representative of our Crooked River, the Cuyahoga. The rest of it is going to be green, which represents Cleveland's nickname, the Forest City, which again, in our survey that we initially put out with those 650 individuals in Cleveland, the top 3 colors that came out were blue, white, and green. Red was shortleaf in 4th place. But again, it was that blue, white, and green. Again, we're known for our lake and our river, and Cleveland being the Forest City, or also another nickname, the Emerald Necklace, with the 17 or 18 metro parks that we have in Cleveland.
Gotcha.
Yeah. What's also really, it's so also what's really cool about it too, we have the 6 stars on there, again hinting towards that original flag design with the 6 images, but also the artist's intention with this, again, which is really cool how subtle it is, but it's also representing the tuning pegs on a guitar, which again, Cleveland being the rock and roll city,
right?
Kind of neat.
Yeah. Okay. I would not have got that, but that makes sense now. I've been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
There, and yeah, wouldn't have got that, but as soon as you said it, it makes total sense.
Yeah, and it was one of those, Clevelanders sometimes are a little annoyed for how much recognition. It's like if you made a drinking game off of a Guardians game or a Brown, like how many times are they going to cut to the Rock Hall? And but I think they do a really good job of hinting it towards that, and it isn't just kind of in your face. It's not a guitar. It's not a
pyramid
or a note or something like that. I think it's really cool done that way. And then the white lines in the center for the civic virtue, tying together the city's past, present, and enduring spirit. The third design we have is going to be our little bird's eye view of the city, which I think is pretty cool. Again, a lot of hints with the second flag design. So at the top, we have that representation of the Lake Erie. And then the green below being the land, or again, our forest city. What's kind of cool is that coastline. It is kind of mimicking that coastline of Cleveland, but also has that little wave crest to it. And then also that upward trajectory, right? So upward movement, forward progress, moving forward, feel to it. Again, we have that 6-pronged star with the original images of the city flag. Also, I will, our intentions were the first and foremost, it's a nod to the original flag with those 6 images. Again, another, and I guess secondary symbol to that is Cleveland's old nickname as the Sixth City. So back in the early 1900s, Cleveland was the 6th largest city in the country, and the city itself had a big marketing push, nicknaming us the Sixth City, where you'll see some businesses and places around the city that still embrace that nickname.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which is
like how
cool.
Chicago's got like second city this, second city that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then the circle, the stars pays tribute to the Ohio flag, connecting Cleveland to its state heritage.
Right. Yeah, I normally I don't know. I'm personally kind of between flag 1 and flag 3 on this one. Flag 3 is not something I would normally go for like several reasons, but I can't quite put my finger on why. I really like it. It's different in what I consider it's different in a very good way, I think.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Were I a local, I think I would well, I don't know. I'd have a hard time voting between 1 and 3. I like 2 as well. It's not a matter of that. I think you guys chose a very good top 3, and then keeping the original at 4 or as number 4 there. But yeah, I'd have a hard time between 1 and 3 here. There's something. Yeah, I can't put my finger on it. I wouldn't normally go for that, but maybe it's that forward progress, the kind of up from the hoist to the fly side there. And I've seen, and so numbers 2 and 3, if I'm not wrong, were created by, I know them as Cleveland Flag, I think, on Instagram.
Yeah. So he just wants to be known as Cleveland Flag, which I really appreciate. Again, throughout this whole process, I really didn't want the attention on me or our group. It's more about kind of what we're trying to do here. And he's kind of the same spirit of it's not about him. So he's the OG. He's somebody that we actually spoke with in the beginning. He's been around for 8 or 9 years. He's kind of the original guy that's been out there actually making Cleveland flag designs. Right. So, as we started this, it was a little bit of a struggle. We are CLE Flag. He is Cleveland Flag. We needed to make sure that they understood, we are the project moving this forward. Cleveland Flag is a designer that really just wants to make the design. But he was great. He actually, he helped us in the beginning of this. This is his little design right here that he gave us that I have on my shirt.
Awesome.
Yeah. So he's really cool. And, for somebody that's put together, again, I think hundreds and hundreds of flag designs throughout the past 8 years, to say that he's going to make the top 2. The man's put a lot of effort into it. And he's really thought it through. So
shout out, well-deserved shout out there as well.
Yeah. And then Aaron with the first one too. Again, awesome design.
Yeah. I mean, good job on both of them. Good job to Cleveland Flag making 2 of the, really 2 of the 3, if you consider that the 4th is the OG. But so 3, I've seen a lot of the designs, and I think you guys pretty much nailed on which ones you went with here. So all right, that is the designs. That's the history of it. As promised, we're going to get to some listener questions. There's a few that we've pretty much already answered, but I did want to shout out folks just for asking them, because we appreciate the engagement here. So Evan D823 did ask, why do you believe that Cleveland needs a new flag? Now, I think we've more or less answered that in part 2. But Evan, I do appreciate you asking. Okay, and then flags in focus. We answered yours. We answered Joe Viseus 2000 asked what was the inspiration behind the dark green flag, which we just went over and gave proper credit to. LT_Schroer, who's also been a guest on the show, that is Luke Schroer. He wanted to know, what design do you most regret not making it to the finals?
Yeah. Man, it's even from the get-go when we were making, our designs originally, I feel like it changed every week on what we thought was the flag.
Sure, yeah.
I would, looking at these designs, and kind of why we picked the three that we did, there was a lot of that bird's eye view. So flag number 3, we had a ton of different bird's eye view of the lake and the city designs. There were some really cool swallowtail designs. Man, I mean, again, I picked the Ohio flag as my underrated flag. I really love the swallowtail design. I think it's very unique to Ohio. I know that there's a lot of people out there that are a little frustrated that we don't have one of those as the final, and I think that's why we made sure flag number 1 was in there, because it gives that nod to the swallowtail.
It's reminiscent anyway. Yeah.
There was one that I really loved, that I thought would be different enough than the Ohio flag, but at the end of the day, it ended up being a little too similar to another country flag, so we ended up backing out on that one. Yeah, which was it's a little frustrating, but
yeah, can be.
Yeah, I mean, those swallowtail designs, it was really cool to see a lot of those. I think that was the big thing, again. Yeah, it was the swallowtail, the bird's eye views. I'm trying to think what else was.
Are there any that you would be, and feel absolutely free to say no, but are there any that you wouldn't mind sending me that I could put either in the show notes or on the video version?
Yeah, let me look through those. We're trying to figure out
in the interim of between us recording right now and and putting this out.
No, absolutely. I know we really want to showcase all of the designs at the end of the day, but we also don't want to take away from these 3 flags and make sure that we keep the momentum going with the way it is right now.
Whatever's comfortable, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I can definitely understand. I mean, even without having them here in front of me, I can definitely understand the desire to have some swallowtail designs and the frustration on the part of the voters of maybe not having one. But yeah, I mean, I think flag 1, it doesn't quite accomplish the same thing, but it's reminiscent enough that, and the colors, the red, white, and blue. I would be, even if I were a huge swallowtail proponent, I think I'd be like 8 out of 10 satisfied with that one.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that the committee was really thinking about, and as we were looking at some of these finalists, because there were swallowtails in the top 14 when it came down to the end of it, was how do you differentiate that from the Ohio flag when it's flying up there, right? And we talk about like that first and foremost, when we're talking about flags recognizable from afar, and that's your flag, is can that flag be different enough that it's not just going to look like the Ohio flag or a variation of it? I've even come across some stickers from actually down where I went to school in Ohio University. They made some different like colored swallowtail Ohio flags, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh geez, okay, those are a little too similar. So
yeah, no, I could definitely see that. All right. I think we had one more from Instagram. I had a couple via text. So one more from Instagram. We had Flagman. That is Frederic Lindbo from Oslo, Norway. And he asked, have you submitted any flag designs yourself?
Yeah, I did not myself. A couple of the guys that I sat down with originally making some designs, they submitted a few of them. But I wanted to make sure I was pretty neutral throughout this whole process.
Right.
I think when we really understood that this couldn't just come from us and it had to come from the community, I quickly took that stance that I'm the guy on the outside organizing everybody. So again, the submissions came from Clevelanders. The decisions came from a committee of Clevelanders. And I'm really just trying to get the right people in place, make things happen, and coordinate the community and hopefully the voice to make this project happen.
Yeah. Also smart, because then you can't get accused of like, even aside from like the profit motive type thing, you can't get accused of
well, and
better to stay out of it if you can.
It's been a really interesting process. Again, I kind of mentioned, a lot of people read headlines and not the actual articles, so there's a lot up front that was the city's
right, you're still going to get it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So, there's a lot of, the city's got better things to deal with than this. And I said, well, exactly. That's why this is a volunteer group and not the city. Again, people take, making profit off of something like this. We're taking on $0. I'm actually in the hole in terms of this project. I've actually spent more money than I've made money on this whole thing.
Right.
You know, again, we want to make sure that it actually goes back into the community and reinvestment into the community. You know, again, with
Yeah.
the Cleveland flag getting the top 2 designs too, you know, the conspiracy theories of, oh, look at that, shocker, the Cleveland flag guy did it. And like, we're not affiliated with them. It's a completely different person.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also,
Yeah.
yeah, and again, a big part of it too, when we went through that committee, was nobody knew who the artist was. Essentially, what the committee could see was the designs and the symbolism that the artist intended, until we got to the top 3 and it was decided, and I had to pick up my phone and start calling people. That was when we unveiled who the artists were.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. I think the last few questions were from my dad, who is a Cleveland, well, we'll call him local, not exactly native. He is from that part of Ohio and grew up as a Indians now Guardians fan and a Browns fan, hence my apparel, etc.
An awesome shirt.
He so all right, so he did say, as for the proposed flags on number 1, that red, white, and blue one there, I would be worried that Columbus, or worse, Cincinnati, would claim the C is for them. Maybe it needs to spell out Cleveland somehow. Ha ha. I think you and I know there's several issues with this question. One being that Cincinnati already has a flag with a C on it. But yeah, do you have any thoughts on, like, I don't know, Columbus or any kind of like mixed up identity stuff here?
Yeah. Well, sorry, Cincinnati, for that dig. But yeah, no, I think, as we all know, words are not great on flags.
Yeah, sorry, Dad.
Which, again, I think that the big part of this project, as we open it up to voters all around the city that don't really know flag design or don't know anything of it, you know, a lot of this feedback is, well, look at it. The original flag, it says Cleveland on it. It says 1796, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, that's great. What other flag do you know or see that has words on it? And can you read that from afar, or when it's shrunk down onto a badge or onto a patch or something like that?
Right.
I think the C with the star on it takes its own brand when you combine that. You know, I mean, let's list off any city or state that starts with a C and uses that in some type of branding. It's all out there. You're going to have that. But I think that C with that star, with it being a white star and with it being a blue C, it takes on its own brand in doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Michael from Flags for Good did a TikTok / Instagram short, etc., where I think he said that was his favorite, based on pretty much what you just said, the branding aspect of it, and that we've covered. Because yeah, there's a lot of places, as you mentioned, with a C, but not with that 6-pointed star in the middle of it. So I think given time, even a short amount of time, that would become recognizably Cleveland. As opposed to anywhere else. We've touched on this several times. He did say, I actually think the current flag is okay too. Again, he's not super much of a flag guy, and as you just touched on, yeah, I mean, it has it hits certain beats. Like, it's got Cleveland, it's got 1796, progress and prosperity. These are all good things to know about Cleveland. Okay, like, great, 1796, progress, but there's better ways to symbolize them. Progress, like the flag where the thing is going up from left to right. Maybe,
yeah,
I guess I should let you answer it, but that's me.
No. Yeah, that was a great explanation, and I think it's very literal and not symbolic, right?
Yeah.
And again,
Show don't tell.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that flag wins. We're gonna do the best we can to promote this thing and brand it. But there's elements that we talked about. It's how do you brand that? How does that get embraced by the community when something like a seal like that may be better as a seal for the city? I mean, let the city government keep that seal. Let city council or something keep that seal, because it's very literal and it's very city government. But something like that's going to be embraced and thrown on a hat or a shirt looks like you work for the city and not necessarily are a passionate Clevelander, right? And then let's jump to the fact that it's just a reverse French flag on there. It gets very tough to have its own identity. Again, I don't want to bash the flag. I don't think it's a bad flag. I think it has history. It has it. Again, there are people that have a passion to that flag, and I think that's beautiful. and that's something we want for everybody. But it is, when I sit there and think about how we can brand that and get it more prominent throughout the city, I think there's a struggle with that. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that more or less answers the rest of his questions too, or most of the rest of his, which are about, which wrap up with like, the more it gets used, the more recognizable it is, and the more it becomes associated with the city itself. I think we can probably leave it there. He did have one last question that I wanted to make sure and ask you, which is, he said, ask him if he can hit a curveball because the Guardians have forgotten how to hit.
I think that was last year. I think the Guardians learned how to hit this year for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll tell you what, man, I was a big baseball baseball player growing up. As a little kid, I was going to be a pitcher for the Guardians. I was going to be, outfielder. I love baseball. I love growing up. But if you want to say curveball as in a 20 or 12-foot arc in softball, I can definitely hit that still. I don't know about curveball.
Yeah, that's where my skill set is now too. Yeah. Although even then it's been about 3 or 4 years, but
yeah.
All right. So I think that pretty much wraps it up nicely and ties it with a bow. So yeah, Brian, we've touched on it probably more than a few times here, but let people know not just the site itself for the project, but where we can find you, follow you, anywhere that you want to be found.
Yeah, easiest way to find us is find us on our social media platforms. Instagram, we are CLE Flag. Our website is cleflag.org. Hit to that main screen. It'll prompt you to the voting and to find out more information about the history of Cleveland, the history of the flags, the symbolisms to every one of the designs.
Yeah, the site is very well fleshed out here. I have already learned a lot just from kind of perusing it. Anyway, yeah, fantastic. So most listeners, viewers probably know where you can follow the show, but if you are new, you can go to our link tree. That's got links for everything, including our Discord, where you can come chat with us, ask questions of upcoming guests, follow our socials. We have a Patreon. You can hop in there, and we do little bonus episodes and early episodes with no ads. So, and that's all at the $2 level or above. Oh yeah, anywhere with @ signs, we are at Flagged for Content, for like the number. And I think that is it for us. So, Brian, as I mentioned over the break, I had a way to close us out here. I think like my dogs ate it, like so much homework. But have you got any kind of way to help us, kind of close this thing out?
I'd be happy to wrap this up for you, Andy.
Right.
I just want to, on behalf of yourself, my name's Brian Lachman. I thank you guys for being a part of this and having me here, Andy. I just want to say, don't forget to let your freak flag. Bye.
That was so much fun. Take care, man. And yeah, VexHeads, we'll catch you on the fly side. Flag for Content is proud to be sponsored by Flags for Good. Go to flagsforgood.com for more information.